But now it's my pleasure to introduce another rising star at Rocky Mountain named Ellie Fox. She's a research specialist at the organization. She's got a Master's of Public Health from University of British Columbia, and she's entering her second year of Doctor of Public Health in Community and Behavioral Health program at CU Public Health. Her work at RMPDS includes managing multiple survey programs, and she really actually is focused on data most recently. So we're excited to have her talk about driving and psychedelic use. Thanks so much, Ellie. Let's hear it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monty. As Dr. Monty said, my name is Ellie Fox. I'm a senior research specialist at RMPDS and a DRPH student at the Colorado School of Public Health. I'm also the program manager for Insight and helped with its development. And today I'm going to be presenting a comparison of self-reported driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics, alcohol, and marijuana across multiple data sources. All right, so we all know that driving while intoxicated is an ongoing public health concern and priority. Driving under the influence of alcohol has been rigorously evaluated, and driving while feeling the effects of marijuana is currently undergoing evaluation by many groups, including the University of Colorado. This is a huge public health concern because over 10,000 people are killed in the US annually because of drivers who are under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, prescription and over-the-counter drugs, and other illicits. Right now, there's particular interest in understanding the intersection of psychedelics and driving because both Colorado and Oregon have recently decriminalized the use of psilocybin. So for this study, we asked a couple questions. We wanted to understand how does the prevalence of self-reported driving while feeling the effects differ between psychedelics, alcohol, and marijuana? And we wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into understanding this relationship with psychedelics. So we asked what characteristics are associated with driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics. We used two data sources. The first was 2023 data from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, or NSDUH, and we used this source to evaluate the prevalence of past year use and past year driving while feeling the effects of alcohol and marijuana. And then we used 2024 data from the National Survey Investigating Hallucinogenic Trends, or Insight, to evaluate the prevalence of last year use and last year driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics, as well as characteristics that are associated with driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics. Just want to note quickly that although these data sources are from 2 different years, we feel comfortable with this comparison. The most recent data that we had for NSDUH was from 2023, but we don't really think that the rates of the prevalence of driving while feeling the impacts of alcohol and marijuana have changed dramatically in the past year, although we do think it's very important to use the most up-to-date information that we have on driving while feeling the impacts of psychedelics, given recent legislative changes. I also want to note that this data is self-reported. So on Insight, we asked the question, have you driven a car while still feeling the effects of psychedelics in the last 12 months? The questions on NSDUH are similar. Basically, we're asking people to self-report whether they've driven while feeling effects as opposed to reporting interactions with law enforcement. And for all of these substances across data sources, we're looking at both past year use and past year driving while feeling the effects. All right, so what did we find? We started by evaluating the national prevalence of use and driving while feeling the effects among all adults in the United States. So national prevalence of use is shown by the blue bars for each substance, and the prevalence of driving while feeling the effects is shown by the orange bars for each substance. And we can see that the prevalence of use in self-reported driving while feeling effects is highest for alcohol, with 66.5% of adults in the US reporting past year use of alcohol, and 6% of adults in the US reporting driving while still feeling the effects of alcohol in the past year. This is lower for marijuana and subsequently for psychedelics. But even though the prevalence of psychedelic use and driving driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics is relatively low compared to alcohol and marijuana, these numbers still equate to millions of adults. So when we see that 4.8% of the US adult population endorses using any psychedelic in the past year, that equates to 12.6 million people. And 1% of adults in the US endorsing driving while feeling the impacts of a psychedelic is equivalent to 2.5 million people. So these are not small numbers. And while the prevalence is low comparatively, when we look at the proportion of people reporting driving while still feeling effects, it's a bit of a different story. So this figure shows the proportion of people who report driving while feeling the effects of one of these substances among those reporting use of that substance in the past year. So we can see that the proportion of past year psychedelic users reporting driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic is about 20.1%, which is similar to that of marijuana and much higher than that of alcohol, which is 9%. In short, 1 in 5 people who used a psychedelic in the past year drove at least once while still feeling its effects. While the prevalence of driving while feeling the effects of alcohol and marijuana is higher than that of psychedelics, the proportion among users is highest for psychedelics and marijuana. From here, we dug into factors related to driving while feeling the effects of psychedelic, starting with age. Okay, so in this figure, we're once again looking at prevalence. Here we can see the prevalence of driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic broken down by age group. And we can see that the highest prevalence is found among adults ages 26 to 34, followed by adults ages 35 to 49 and 18 to 25. The prevalence of driving while still feeling the effects of a psychedelic drops off at ages 50 and older. Next, we looked at the relationship between substance use disorder and driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic. So remember that the proportion of self-reported driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic was about 20% among all adults who had used a psychedelic in the past year, and that's shown for reference by the gray dotted line in this slide and on the next slide. And here we can see that there's a consistent higher likelihood of driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic in the presence of a comorbid substance use disorder. Just for reference, problematic drug use behavior was determined using respondent scores on the DAST-10, which is a validated scale that's used to measure the likelihood of a substance use disorder. Cannabis use disorder, opioid use disorder, and alcohol use disorder were all self-reported by participants. Endorsement of any substance use disorder was associated with a higher proportion of self-reported driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic when compared to all adults who used a psychedelic in the past year. So lastly, we evaluated frequency and found that the proportion of respondents self-reporting driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic increased as frequency of use increased. This is not really surprising. Higher frequency equates to more opportunities to drive while still feeling the effects of a psychedelic. Those reporting using a psychedelic daily, weekly, or monthly were more likely to drive while still feeling its effects than all adults who had endorsed psychedelic use in the past year. Okay, so some key takeaways. So we found in this study that the proportion of driving while feeling effects was higher for psychedelics compared to alcohol and similar to that of marijuana, although the overall prevalence of both use and driving while feeling the effects was lower for psychedelics compared to marijuana and alcohol, which means that overall counts in the population are lower. We found a few characteristics that were associated with driving while still feeling the effects of psychedelics. One was having a comorbid substance use disorder, another was increased frequency of use, and the third was being younger than 50. This is an early investigation into this topic, so we really want to understand what people mean when they self-report driving while still feeling the effects of a psychedelic. The way that we phrased the question may have excluded people who didn't think that they were still feeling effects, but may have still been impaired. Since Insight is a confidential and anonymous survey with the ability to capture nuance around these behaviors, we hope to continue to explore and understand behaviors around driving while feeling the effects of a psychedelic. Okay, so next steps. We've identified that there's a lot that we still want to understand between the intersection of psychedelic use and driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics. So I have 4 next steps that we propose the public health community to undertake. So first, we want to prevent injuries, and to do so, we want to evaluate the occurrence of crashes and injuries related to driving while feeling the effects of psychedelics to inform prevention and mitigation measures, and this can include testing for impairment. Second and third, we want to study the mechanism and understand the effects behind psychedelic-impaired driving. Both the mechanisms and the effects differ between alcohol and marijuana, and we suspect that this is also true for psychedelics. This should include an evaluation of time course and subsequent impacts on driving. The effects of psychedelics generally last longer than those of alcohol and marijuana, although we think there's nuance here that we need to understand better. And lastly, we want to continue to use tools like Insight to actively monitor behaviors and characteristics associated with driving and psychedelics at the population level. And the Colorado Department of Transportation is currently working on guidance around psychedelics and driving, so keep an eye out for that on their homepage. Just want to extend a huge thank you to Michael Lodka, who led the analysis of this project, and Kyle Beekman, who completed validation. I'd also like to thank Dr. Carrie Rockhill, my scientific mentor at RMPDS, and Dr. Ashley Brooks-Russell, my academic advisor at the Colorado School of Public Health, for their guidance and support throughout this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. I know these data are going to be very helpful with the state policies.